Good evening, and I believe it was last Monday I talked about the topic of beauty in the Dharma. This topic of beauty has been on my mind quite a bit since I kind of discovered that it's much more in the Buddha's teachings than the English translations had let on. And so maybe it's natural that in thinking about this topic of beauty, I'm reflecting on it also in relationship to the mass shootings we've had in this country for the last 8 days or so. One here just relatively nearby in Gilroy and El Paso and elsewhere. And I'm struck by the statistics that have come out in the wake of these, depending on what the criteria is for how to measure mass shootings or something like that. One of them is that there have been 21 mass shootings this year so far where 4 or more people were killed. There have been 31 mass shootings where 3 or more people have been killed. But if you only consider how many people have been shot in mass shootings just this year, and the criteria is 4 or more people have been shot, either wounded or killed, there have been 250. 250. There's not been 250 days of the year yet. So in other words, there's more than one mass shooting in this country every day. It's kind of mind-blowing. And there's a nonprofit that's been counting how many of these. And so I went on their website, and it's all documented. 250. It's, and they're very strict about what they document, what they accept as being, counting. There has to be, clear evidence and reports from the police and things like that. 250 shootings where 4 or more people have been shot in this country in the first 216 days of the year. So I think it's on many people's minds or in their hearts that we live in a country like this, that to me it's certainly a little bit mind-blowing that I live in a country where so many people get shot and so many people are shooting each other. And I think this kind of situation deserves a response from every single person. I think the greater the tragedy is, the more as individuals we do ourselves a disservice, or maybe we should say it stronger, we do ourselves a kind of harm if we don't in some way changed positively by it. If not some way we respond, not that we can fix all the problems that exist, but to somehow be changed by it and be a person who responds in such a different way in the world, so that we kind of become a force of good in the world and change by the very magnitude of the things. The more greater the magnitude, the more I think that if we don't somehow let it affect us, I suspect something inside of us goes numb or shuts down. I had this very strong feeling of this in right after 9/11, a good number of years ago now, and so in the wake of that, I didn't fix 9/11. That just happened, right? And I don't have the presumption that I'm going to go out there and try to stop terrorism or whatever it is. But what I did was I started a Buddhist chaplaincy training program. And now it's been going on for, I think it's the 15th year or 16th year that we're doing it. And it's not addressing terrorism, but it is a form of compassionate care in the world. It's something I dedicated myself to doing, because I wanted to do something different. I wanted to contribute in some way. And I've been very happy for these many years of been doing this, and tremendous amount of good that has been done through the hundreds of people now that we've trained, and going off into all kinds of settings where there are trauma victims and people going through tremendous tragedies, and hospitals and ER rooms and hospices and all kinds of places. And so to be changed by this and to become somehow. So then we come to the topic of beauty. Why would I talk about beauty in the wake of tragedies like this? Turns out that for the Buddha, his teachings on karma were couched or presented in the context of teaching about beauty. So what in the world does karma have to do with beauty? And what does beauty of karma have to do with mass shootings in this country? The teaching of karma is a teaching, I think, first and foremost, that we're supposed to take responsibility for ourselves, for what we do, what we say, what we do, and not only that, but also what we do with our minds, what we think. There's an amazing expression in English, I don't know, or in American English at least, and maybe some of you have used this expression. I couldn't help it. Wow, what an admission. You couldn't help it. This is like the most un-Buddhist thing to say. I couldn't help it. It means that we're caught, enslaved, acting on habit, acting on powerful forces inside of us that we have no control over, or can't take any responsibility for, can't kind of. And the clear antidote for this, one antidote, one place that the laboratory for exploring this, understanding this, is when we meditate. To sit and meditate is to choose not to go along with some of the impulses that arise. It can be as simple, maybe it's not simple, as simple as having an itch while you meditate. And I couldn't help it, I scratched. Okay. Or in meditation, the idea is you don't scratch. You sit there and don't give in to the impulse, even if it's strong. And there can be very strong forces inside that say that, screams at you, scratch the itch. It's so strong that it can seem like, probably it feels like you're going to die. But it's just an itch. Or there can be strong justification that says, I don't deserve to sit here with an itch. I deserve pleasure. I've had a busy day and I should have pleasure and just relax. And so then I couldn't help myself, but I scratched. But to sit still and not give in is to help yourself, is to learn how not to respond with habit, not to allow very strong impulses inside to have control over you, but learn how to be free. And maybe the consequence of that meditation with the itch, you would say, you go to work the next day and people say, how was your meditation yesterday? And you would say, it was awful. And they say, well, why did you do it? Why did you say awful? You should get up and do something else. There's TV shows to watch. And you might say, if you were wise, well, it was awful, but I'm actually a stronger person now in a particular way. I'm stronger at not giving in to my impulses. I have a stronger ability now to not have to excuse myself and say, I couldn't help myself. I now can I can now stay balanced, non-reactive. I can not give in to forces that in the past I always gave into. So itch is an itch, it's not such a big thing in and of itself, but what we learn with the itch is actually a big deal for how it applies to other places in life. So in meditation, these things happen, all kinds of things happen like this. There's a pain in the knee. Do you automatically shift your posture? Or the impulse is to shift? Or do you sit there and just kind of don't give into it right away and rather meet it with mindfulness? If you don't give in to an impulse, but instead meet it and look at it with mindfulness, you're exercising your ability to be free. You're also exercising your ability to help yourself. Because some of the impulses and ideas and thoughts that come up, feelings come up and all that, are not really healthy for you. So for example, with thinking, I imagine that a huge percentage of your, if it should have happened that you had some thoughts during the sitting, if it happened, chances are that a huge percent of them were stellarly ethical, beautiful, exemplary, the kind of thoughts that saints have, beautiful, wonderful people have. But you would have been proud if we had broadcast the thoughts on the wall here, so that everyone could have seen exactly what you were thinking about. It would have been, inspiring, enlightening for all of us. Nice. But occasionally it happens that people have thoughts which are not so exemplary. They're not so proud about it. If they actually saw them on the wall, they'd turn red, or they would, wish they hadn't. And so that thought that is kind of difficult, maybe it's unethical even, or maybe it's, whatever, you make up, I don't have to give you examples. And maybe it's one you have repeatedly, a certain theme. Maybe it has to do with your boss, if you have a boss. And you're just really annoyed with your boss. And you go through these scenarios of how you're going to really lay into your boss. Or how you're going to make sure that you get the last cup of coffee at the coffee machine so the boss can't get it. Just get back at that boss. And you're doing this whole planning of how you can measure, figure out the timing of it so you can get that coffee. And because in spite of him or in anger at him, you're going to, not let the boss get the extra coffee or whatever. Something, right? So I couldn't help it but to have these thoughts about revenge on my boss with that coffee. I couldn't help it. Okay, well then you're not free. But you're sitting meditating, and those thoughts come up, and you say, not now. I'm not going to do this. I drop them. I shift my attention away from those thoughts and the planning that goes into it to come back and be with my breathing. The thoughts come back. I exercise my freedom, my ability to not give into it. I exercise my ability to help myself, because I've learned that when I go off and spin out on those thoughts of revenge, it harms me. And so I'm helping myself to come back. And then after a while, perhaps you begin to stay on your breath, you start to relax, you forget about your boss, and lo and behold, after a while, you find that you're kind of relaxed, and it actually feels kind of comfortable and nice to be here, as opposed to the tightness and the heat that was there with the boss and the coffee machine thoughts. So you're helping yourself in that moment. So it turns out every moment that you're alive, you can help yourself. Every moment you have a choice of whether you help yourself or you don't help yourself. What direction do you go? What do you do in the moment? Mindfulness is a very powerful way of helping yourself. Mindfulness doesn't mean that you can stop certain impulses and thoughts and feelings, but it means that you step away from them. You engage, you put the energy of your mind it, to notice it, to see it, rather than being caught in it and absorbed in it and obsessed with it. And it could be as simple as, wow, I'm obsessed. The moment you say, wow, I'm obsessed, that little moment, you've helped yourself. That little moment, you're not obsessed. You kind of distance yourself from it. You're not caught in it. And so exercising this capacity to help ourselves is something we get stronger and stronger with. That's what meditation is about. Some people associate meditation with getting calm and relaxed and having good experiences and, and blissful experiences. And a huge part of what Buddhist meditation is about is getting better and better at helping yourself. Better and better at being free, not giving in to impulses that where you're caught, you're stuck, you're attached. And then choose something else to do. To exercise our capacity for choice. So if you ever hear yourself saying, I couldn't help myself, I think there should be some follow-up statement that you make to that. And I don't know what the best one is. You can decide for yourself what it should be. But what occurs to me in the moment is something like, I'm sorry that's the case. Or, I'm going to try to do better next time. Or, that was unfortunate. As opposed to gleefully saying, I couldn't help myself but to have a second donut. Add something. Add some wisdom to the end of it. I couldn't help myself, and I'm sorry, or that was too bad, or I'll do better next time. Or I couldn't help myself, and that meant that I didn't help myself. That meant that I was not free. So exercising this capacity for helping myself then comes directly into the Buddha's teachings about karma. The karma teaching is emphasizing that you have the ability to help yourself. What you do makes a difference. And it isn't really a complicated theory about multiple lives and about past actions cause what's happening today, to explain everything that's going on for you. Today is because of your past karma. It's gotten kind of complicated, all the associations for this teaching. But in having studied the Buddha's teachings repeatedly, I see that the whole karma teaching is an emphasis, be careful what you do now. Now be careful, because what you do now has consequences. So one of the common ways of talking about karma is people talk about good karma and bad karma. And I've heard this language for decades. And the Buddha, if you want to be, the Buddha said you should avoid bad karma, you should do good karma. And I heard it so much, I kind of just went along with it, and good, bad, that's great, whatever, And turns out that the word good and bad has connotations of ethics, of what you should do and shouldn't do, of being moralistic. You're a bad person if you do the bad. You're really good. If you do the good, and it's all that's kind of the soup that I was swimming in. Until a week or two ago, I looked up what the word is that the Buddha uses for good karma. And it's the word that I talked about last week called kalyana, which the first dictionary definition in Pali English dictionaries, and also in Sanskrit English dictionaries, those famous Sanskrit English dictionaries, the Mounier-Williams dictionary, the first definition of kalyana is beautiful. Beautiful. So, beautiful karma. We're not talking about good karma, we're talking about beautiful karma. what does that do to the whole teachings of karma? And then this word bad is a bad word. I think it's an unfortunate translation. Sometimes it's translated as evil, and those of you here from India might recognize some of these words. Maybe they're even used in modern languages. There's a word papa, and most people translate it as evil, and I just can't get myself to be enthusiastic about it because of my kind of European heritage, religious heritage, that the word evil has so many associations with sin. And if you've sinned, you're unredeemable. If you're sinned, you go to hell forever. And apparently God's given up on you. And so that's a pretty heavy thing. And this idea that the evil has that meaning in Buddhism doesn't fit. And so I don't know if evil is the right word translation for it. And bad is so vague, it doesn't really say much. So I don't know what the best translation is, but right now I'm proposing to call it ill, I-L-L. And the reason for that is that it's clearly something ill. It's both, ill means both, like it's sick, but it also means it's bad or it's wicked or maybe it's evil even. But it doesn't have the same strong connotations of the word evil and the vagueness of bad. And so the teachings of, and also ill, something that's ill, is ill in and of itself. In addition, it might be ill, in the future, or cause problems in the future. So the karma teaching is teachings about what is a beautiful actions and what are ill actions. Doesn't that change the kind of connotations from good and bad? Beautiful. And the Buddha used this word kalyana. It's not 100% clear it should be translated as beautiful, but it works really well. And if you look up the dictionary definitions for beauty, they say, one definition is what pleases the aesthetic sense. That's nice, right? But the second definition is what pleases our moral senses. In English, the word beauty has sometimes an association with ethics. What is virtuous or ethically beautiful? Someone who's a beautiful person internally, inner beauty, is often someone who's really ethical. The other connection, and this comes from this wonderful authority, Wikipedia. But it's nice sometimes to look at Wikipedia because there's lots of good information there. But also you get a sense, I feel like when I look at Wikipedia, some words, I get kind of a popular view of what something means, what something's going to defined or understood. And it's kind of nice to see what the popular thing is. So if you look up beauty, one of the things it says about beauty is something like beauty is connected to the sense of the harmony or natural order of the harmony of nature or the natural order of the natural world, something like that. And so, to bring this into Buddhism, this kalyana as beauty relates to kind of an ethical beauty, and it relates to something about the natural order or the harmonious order of nature. And so karma teachings are part of nature. And whatever actions you do, whatever choices you make, you're going to reap, in one way or the other, you're going to reap the results of those, the consequences of it. That's just the natural order. It's kind of like if you drop a ball from your hand, natural order, harmony of gravity as the ball falls. In the simplistic teachings of karma, if you do something which is ill, you will reap something ill. If you do something beautiful, you'll reap something beautiful. So here's a verse, a poem by the Buddha. Whatever kind of seed is sown, that's the kind of fruit you'll reap. A doer of beauty reaps beauty. A doer of ill reaps ill. So how is it when you do something beautiful that you reap beauty? One of the things is that you reap the benefits of the beauty here and now. It feels really good. It's kind of inspiring and nice to do something that's beautiful. And where does it feel nice? It feels nice internally. You do something good, and you might just be following the rules. You get out the ethical rule book, and it says, thou shalt. Okay, I'm going to do that. You're supposed to be generous. Okay. I don't feel generous, but I'm going to do the right thing, the good thing. But, if you're going to do the beautiful thing, you can't do the beautiful thing in an ugly way, because it's the inner beauty that we're looking for. And so to act in the world in a beautiful way, then we benefit from that right away. It feels good. We also benefited from it because it becomes conditioning in the mind. It trains the mind. If in meditation you choose not to give in to the itch, you're strengthening and developing and training your mind not to give in to impulses, which, it's a minor issue around the itch. But if you've trained yourself not to give in, you might come to a situation in life where it's a matter of life and death whether you yell or not, or whether you punch someone out or not, or if whatever, and you feel so grateful that you know how to control yourself. That you don't have to say, I couldn't help myself, officer, when I hit you. Oh, you couldn't help yourself. That's okay. I'm fine with my bloody nose, and have a nice day. And so you don't know when it's so you're conditioning yourself. You're training yourself to developing yourself. If you do things that are ill, it is a kind of training. It is a kind of reinforcement. It is a kind of conditioning of ourselves. And the more we do things which are ill, or if I can use this language, the more we do things which are ugly, we're actually creating the conditions for more ugliness. So so this is now we come into this topic of the mass shooting. If we want to be changed by it, if we want to kind of try to be now, as a result of that, a force that does better for the world, you can do things that are kind of ill. You can just go around and be more and more angry at any number of people or peoples, and and just be furious and angry and critical, and figure out how to kind of plan how to make sure that certain individuals don't get any more coffee because you're that's your way of doing vendettas, or resetting the order of the world. But you're just doing ugly things. You're doing ugly things with your mind, you're speaking ugly things, you're planning ugly things, maybe you're even doing ugly things. And so what we're doing is we're then contributing to more of this ill in the world. First and foremost to ourselves, but it spills out, it travels beyond us. I've said this story a few times, and especially when I tell it now, I feel actually kind of embarrassed to tell you, but I think it's a powerful lesson. It was for me. So I'm raising two boys, and the older one was what they call a high spirit child, highly spirited child. It's a very beautiful way of talking about it. A certain kind of behavior. And so he was, at times, when he was really small, a handful, and he was always pushing boundaries and things. And we tried to be wise about how we raised him, and probably did, well enough so that our mistakes in parenting, um, he learned enough that he'll correct for them himself when he's older. I thought that was the best we could do. So anyway, so there were some times when we when I felt like this has to stop. What's going on? And so I used what I called my strong voice, and it worked. There was no, it worked. And so, wow. So I wasn't going to use that very often, but wow, that okay, it worked. The behavior stopped for that occasion. Then one day, at home, with his younger brother, who was, I don't know how old he was, maybe 2 years old, and he was maybe 6, 7. I heard him use exactly the same voice on his younger brother. And I said, what have I done? What have I created? I was horrified. I thought it just worked for that moment and that was it. But I was teaching him something. I was teaching him what people do when they're frustrated. I was passing my ugliness onto him. So where does our ill, our ugliness, how does it ripple out? And how does it come back to us? And where does it live in our memories? And where does it live in our conditioning? And where does it live, and when does it rear its head? So that out of the blue, at a time when, 10 years later, that the old conditioning to do something in an ill way, in harm-creating ways, kind of is there and you can't help yourself. It just kind of comes out under stress. And then you feel horrible. Or the opposite, that because of all those times you've done the equivalent of not give in to the itch. But even better than that, you didn't give in to the itch, and you did it with tremendous sense of care, reverence, respect for yourself. Telling yourself, I know it's hard to sit there with an itch, but I really care about you, talking to yourself. I really want you to be free and be prepared to do the wise things when things get really difficult. And so staying here and not giving in to the itch is a training for this. 10 years down the line, that's challenging my situation arises, and you say, and you feel like I can't help myself, and you think, oh, the itch. I think I can help myself. I cannot give in to it. Or perhaps because you keep telling yourself, these nice words like, oh, I care about you, I want the best for you, and I'm not going to give in to the itch. You find yourself speaking kindly to yourself at a time when you feel really furious and you feel like just like yelling at someone and swearing or something at someone. And you say, wait, I care about you. I care what goes on. I care about your inner beauty. And that comes back unexpectedly. It's almost like you hear a voice. And oh, okay. So the idea of this, that you reap what you sow, is that in a variety of different ways, some that are just kind of almost mechanical and obvious, and some which are unseen, the byways and highways in which these things work in our psychology, that if we do beauty, if we do beautiful things, we will reap beauty. If we do ill things, we'll reap ill. And to simply kind of give up responsibility for what you choose is to, I'm afraid that if you give up responsibility, you don't exercise this ability of choice with that what you don't want will probably take precedence, probably take over the places where you can't help yourself, and will grow and develop. And you can, as we train ourselves and do the mindfulness practice and the Buddhist practice and learn to do what's beautiful, then that grows and develops. And as it grows with a clear sense a perception of something that's here, maybe within you, maybe in the perception or awareness itself, that feels really beautiful. We start living in beauty. To do the things when we can't help ourselves, even if it's not unethical, but if we, rushing. If you give in to rushing, it's not a sin. It's not a crime usually to rush. And, I don't want to say it's bad to rush and tell you instead of doing the bad rushing, you should do the good. Somehow. But when you rush, there's no connection to what's beautiful. We lose touch. What is it to start learning to be in touch with being perceptive and experience your beauty, to establish a sense of beauty, psychological beauty, heart beauty, ethical beauty, a beautiful mind, a beautiful heart, and stay close to that. And if you're committed to staying close to that, you won't rush. Unless it's emergency. Or say it differently, you might rush, but you'll never hurry. Hurry is when you lose your self-presence and self-awareness. Doing things fast, you can do things with awareness. So the idea of beauty. So I'm kind of reflecting on this, and this talk I'm giving today is kind of my own reflections on this topic. Once I discovered this word beautiful is such a big part of the Buddhist teachings, and no one's been talking about it, I feel like, wow, this is like a gold mine of trying to understand our life in a different way. And to live a life that is focused on beauty rather than focusing on good. That seems like more fun. That seems like more inspiring. And maybe if you do what's beautiful, the good will come as a byproduct. That'll just come along. But you get so much more when you do the beautiful thing. So what happens if you live and do what feels beautiful? What feels, that has the some aesthetic sense of beauty in the variety of ways that inner beauty can be experienced. Maybe it's ethical beauty, virtue. Maybe it's a sense of nature and natural order of things. What if you are much more beautiful than you allowed yourself to know? What if your capacity for being beautiful person, beautiful being, is just sitting inside waiting for you? That feels, much more kind of nice and inspiring than if I said, you're a good person, you have a capacity for really being good. It's just waiting. Being good is waiting inside. That might inspire some of you, but aren't you at least a little bit, at least like I am, a little intrigued by what is this beautiful thing, and how does that change the discussion? How does that change how we think about life and think about ourselves if we are oriented around beauty? And how is being oriented towards beauty not selfish? Kind of indulging in something. If you do the good thing, that's not indulging. But beauty, isn't that kind of just pleasure? I think there's something, when we're talking about Dharma beauty, inner beauty, we're talking about something very, very profound, and something that's more profound than just the good. So, you're beautiful. Please show it to us. And if you can live in a beautiful way, maybe in your way, the people you touch, the people you meet, maybe you'll have the occasion to offer such kindness, generosity, love, care to someone that maybe, directly or indirectly, you prevent some future mass shooting. If we don't care for each other and take care of each other and let people let the ugliness kind of prevail and not be countered or not be experienced, there's not much hope. So may you be the agent of change, simply by being beautiful. Thank you.